Så ska vi en stor applåd till Didrik Martens från Chapman Bright.
Good morning, Mats.
Welcome, Didrik. I cross my fingers that your microphone will work.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Is it working?
So
Good.
far, so good. So, I mean, you've really been working with and implemented that in customers. What do you think about what Warren said?
I can truly relate to that. As you mentioned, we had a great conversation last night, and I think in the past years that people still think marketing automation is the, big magic red button, but there's much more to it to make it work. So,
Stage is yours. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, you can safely sit down. I won't ask you back up to.
Thank you.
dance
Thank
with
you.
me. So, first of all, today for me is a very special day. Actually, I mentioned it to Mats as well. Actually, my daughter, 9 years old, is doing her first presentation today at school, in which I helped creating the slides earlier this weekend. And she's actually talking about herself. And as a coincidence, I'm talking about myself as well today, only on a 3-year time span. And of course, that's why you're here. So let's get started. First of all, I'm a chief marketing technologist, at least that's how Scott Brinker from Chief Martech likes to call our people that work with marketing automation. And what does a chief marketing technologist do? Well, actually what we do is we help people in leadership, sales, and marketing to be the best they can be by leveraging great technology, processes, insights, and best practices. And therefore we help them to be successful. And marketing automation, of course, is one of the biggest centers of that expertise. And I think the other half is like CRM or sales automation for sales. Marketing automation is for the marketing community. So before I take you on that journey, first I want to do a recap in 3 slides on why we are here today. And it basically started like 100 years ago, right? If you wanted to buy a bread or something and the local bakery put up a poster at the city square, we had word of mouth, and then we had newspapers, radio, and then we had television in the 50s and 60s. And that's when the marketing discipline hit education, where we started learning about, segments, where we thought about, advertising for a reasonable price to reach the mass audiences in a TV show that is mostly watched by males or females, and you would just put the relevant ad there. And then the digital revolution, the internet, really made things change. I think that's something you heard a lot of events before. And if you want to read another book, next to Warren's book, of course, is Jeff Thull with The Shallows, Nicholas Carr with The Shallows. And it's really about how the mind started working differently, how we purchase things differently. So to give you a small example, maybe 20 years ago, maybe even 15, let's say 20 years ago, if you wanted to buy a vacuum cleaner, you would go to a local retail shop, you would find let's say a 50-year-old guy that was going to sell you that vacuum cleaner, and you trusted that salesman because he knew the product and you didn't. Right? Now the world has changed. You start to self-inform, you go to a website, you go to an e-commerce site, there's a bunch of filters on the side which allow you to say, do I want a bag or a bagless vacuum cleaner? It doesn't have to be a 15-meter cord to make sure that I can reach the other side of the room. And when you then, you either put it in your shopping basket and pay it online, or you go to a store. But if you go to the store, there's no 50-year-old guy, there's this 70-year-old dude that is reading the tags in the store, telling you what the product is. So the mind is working differently, we are buying things in a different way. And I think, we mentioned Shopify, Alibaba, Netflix, I think Amazon is doing, near real-time drone delivery in 20 minutes, and they're experimenting with that. So things are really different now. People expect us to be relevant. And I think, we all heard the message, sending the right message through the right channel, at the right time, to the right person. That's all very nice, but you can't do that without understanding someone. So it all starts by understanding people's needs, and I think also, like Warren said, it's really thinking about, what their needs are, what makes their heart tick. And this is becoming increasingly more easy, right? Warren also said it. Technology is getting more affordable by the day. We also use chat on our website with playbooks and storylines. Ours is not free, unfortunately, so Warren, we have to chat which one you are using, so we can save some money. But like, everyone has seen the MarTech technology landscape? Who has seen it? Yeah, we're currently at 7,010 or something, but really, it's getting more affordable and more easy to use every day. And as a result, people are getting better at understanding and being relevant. Our customers are expecting it more every single day. And if you miss that boat, you won't make it. So that's a bit of the context, some of the things that you've heard before. What I want to do is I want to take you on a 3-year journey at my previous employer before I founded Chapman Wright, and go through the aha moments, the key milestones, and really dig in and to show you how things work and can be done. So going from theory to practice. So this is Quintic. Quintic is headquartered in the Netherlands and Philadelphia, Dutch-founded company. I entered there as employee 612, I think, and within 3 years we hired employee 1,000. So we had to grow 30 to 40% every consecutive year. I was head of marketing ops, and my partner in crime was the head of sales ops, and together we had to reinvent, remap, and remaster ourselves, and we had to, well, enable a 30 to 40% growth every year. And I think innovation is taking more steps than falling, and so it's okay to fall, it's okay to try, it's okay to fail. And another thing that I want to show is that Quintic is a software company, so this is B2B, what I'm talking about, but a lot of these things can be used for B2C as well. And they're selling software for supply chain planning and optimization, so software for planning logistics, software for planning production processes. So when I arrived there, in my first month or so, I was going to be the marketing automation specialist, and I think that was 2012, 2011 or something. And one of the first things that I noticed is, okay, I want to be relevant, right? I want to send the right message at the right time. I want to build nurture and engagement streams. And I figured out they're not doing any lead management, right? And everybody heard about inquiries, MQLs, SAS, SALs, SQLs, the demand waterfall by Serious Decisions. They didn't have any of that. So you cannot measure the impact of what you do without great KPIs. So you need to make sure that you have lead management in place. You need to make sure that how many leads that you generate actually end up at sales, get qualified, turn into deals. Every initiative that you deploy, you need to be able to measure to see how much business value it creates. I see too many people working on nurture streams and campaigns and emails, and they think about open rates and click rates, conversion rates, but they don't think about meetings booked, deals that come in. It's really thinking about reaching those KPIs and creating value for your company. And people and companies that do that very well have like 8 times more deals per 1,000 inquiries. What does that mean? So for every 1,000 new names that you generate, let's say 100 buy your products, there's a difference of factor 8 between people that really manage this and the people that don't. Serious Decisions quote. The next thing, I want to do nurturing. Think about content. Content is the fuel of your engagement engine. It's the bait that makes people click and engage with you, and by doing so you can kind of detect what their interests are, their willingness and their propensity to buy. And creating content is very expensive. We all know how expensive content is. One of the key things people tell me is that, yeah, I can start marketing automation because I need to have content and I don't have enough content and it costs me too much money. What I did is I started with a path for everyone. Everyone needs to have a path. So we created content, a few pieces about solving puzzle challenges, solving planning challenges. Anyone could use that and create and get value from it. When we went to the second layer, we thought about, okay, but planning production processes is so much different than planning logistical processes. So if we take a few items and create them on production, then those people that are in production can at least have a slightly more relevant engagement with us. And I thought, well, producing steel is very different than assembling cars in production. So the challenges there for planning are quite different. So what I did is we created a few items on in this case, metals, and then aluminum, copper, steel. The processes of furnaces and creating that is very different as well. So we created like 2 items on aluminum. And by doing that, I had a collection of generic, mid-level, and very detailed in content, put that together, created streams from that, and then I benchmarked those streams against the more generic streams. And by doing that, I showed people that those items perform 3 times better. They attribute 3 times more touch pipeline than the generic content. And that created the business case for me, for the team, in this case was in Kuala Lumpur, to create much more content for engagement streams. And that way I created the business case for where I am today. Second part. This is actually a very interesting story. So a lot of marketing automation. Who's in marketing right now here? Who's in sales? So good that you two came here to... This always starts with marketing. You don't do this alone, do this together with sales. And it's like an open door, but I still see people doing this, trying to do this as a marketing initiative, right? And I can understand that some of your sales might be traditional, but involve them. I think for me, the key turning point in the team was, I got a call in the morning from our CMO, my manager in the US, and he said, yeah, we have this deal with, I think I can name it, that was Amy's Kitchen. And Amy's Kitchen was a potential €4 million deal. And what happened was they were at 90% closure, and then the CEO, she then said, yeah, but don't we need to make a reference visit or a reference call? And sales was like, oh my God, we don't have a reference in the food market. How are we going to solve this? And maybe it's going to take us 3 weeks to set up that reference call. And then in the meantime, competitors come back with aggressive pricing. How do we solve that? And I was actually working with the team on what we call prospect portals. And back in the day, it was very sophisticated. It was touch responsive. You could slide through different pieces of content. So on there we put case studies, we put on the recording of the demo that we did, the slides and everything. We added the sales and account managers with a picture on the page. And we put on a reference of a testimonial from a steel manufacturer. So completely irrelevant, but as you know, a case study is about the case, a testimonial is about why should I buy from this company. And so we built that. It took us 8 hours to build that, and the next day I got a call from the CMO. It's like, everybody is talking about you. They signed a deal. The reference visits were no longer needed. And that sales rep was really, really appreciative of what we did. Then we started doing more of these portals for him. And then he became so successful that the rest of the US team also wanted these portals. And then the rest of the world started to notice, and at some point the entire company said, as of 30% opportunity size, these portals become mandatory. We productized it, and at a certain point we could build such a portal under 30 minutes. And it was not about the success of those portals and that product. The message here, the hidden message, is that it was our first collaboration success with sales, which opened the door for sales to trust this marketing team and go on new endeavors, on new journeys. And every time we came up with a new idea, they were very receptive of taking us and going on that next idea. And that catalyzed our 30 to 40% growth every consecutive year. So we arrive about 1 month, I think it should say 1 year, but at some point we had X million of attributed pipeline with nurturing, and we noticed that for all the pieces of content that were available in local languages, because we're doing Korea, Russia, US, all over the world, and we noticed that our 250 pieces of content, the more translated they are, the better it works. We actually noticed that if we do single language engagement, so no blend of, I have 10 items in Italian and then I have 3 more in English. No. Make sure that you solely communicate in a single language. At least for us that worked. And it tripled the engagement. And so another thing that we did is sales was at some point very discomfortable by saying like, hey, what types of content are you sending to my prospects? Right? Can I trust you? because I know these things about prospects, and does your machine also know? And one of the things that we did is we documented the entire process. So what happens in an engagement stream? We documented every piece of content. And if they selected an engagement stream or a nurture program from their CRM system, it will come with a link. They hit it and they see a PDF, which was on the SharePoint, so it was always up to date. And in that PDF, they could read the why we nurtured, how we nurtured, which pieces of content would touch their prospects, and that created a lot of trust with them. A second thing that we did is we created a report where for every account, they could see how many of the contacts are in nurturing, and that way we got a lot of trust from the sales community that they were okay with us, not just nurturing at the front of the journey, but also keep nurturing throughout the sales process. Something Warren also mentioned in his presentation, like you hand over the lead to sales and suddenly things go silent. If you continue nurturing throughout the sales process, you can have a huge impact, especially if the sales cycles are pretty long. For us, they were like 6 to 18 months. If you continue to communicate throughout that time, your successes increase significantly. Another tip for marketing automation really depends on the type of platform that you're using. But try to template things, right? Marketing automation can save you a lot of time if you template things. So if you always start from scratch, building this new program, filling out the title, adding emails, pages, workflows, that's pretty cumbersome. So make sure that when you select a platform, you can have like a fully built best practice template program for an event or a webinar. And the only thing that you do is you clone it, change the title, change the date, and some text, and you launch it. You want to make sure that your go-to-market time is as short as possible. And most of the enterprise capable platforms have this functionality. So when you're doing selections, make sure that is on your top of your list. So there was a lot of lessons learned, and like I already mentioned, creating that report to have people have insights in the sales process and in the nurturing really helped. And with that came a totally new era, I think, for Quintic, where we're constantly in this agile way of working. So every 2 weeks we had a sprint planning, looked at our backlog, thought about, okay, which hypotheses have the highest chance to create value for the company, and we started improving the nurture streams more and more and more and more. And I think the proudest moment we had with the team was when we received the Killer Content Award back in 2015, which was where we tripled, again, engagement rate with nurture programs. And unfortunately, we couldn't go to the US, but someone else in the US picked it up, and it's still, I think, it's still in the office today. And I think everyone in every team should set themselves a goal in winning some kind of award, because what it does to a team is very motivating. Then, well, I talked about that lead management process that we had, but I figured out that there were still so many pieces missing that we were at the edge of what we could do with innovation. There were no more things that we could do that actually impacted the KPIs that we had. So, and also, it was a model that came today when I joined the company within a month. And it was I think Sweden is like the same way, where there's a lot of consensus in projects, like in the Netherlands. I see people nodding, yes, yes, yes. And so there was the CMO, they wanted to do it that way, the sales op director wanted to do it that way, and I was like, okay, but I want to do it best practice, but then, okay, a model of consensus, and then we changed it, and I said, and everybody was on board, and we actually went to a more professional, re-architected demand waterfall that also took into account our inside sales force, and that way we had new KPIs. And with those new KPIs, we could again work on different projects that again had more, create more value for the company. And whenever you change a process, change requires change. Again, sorry Warren for stealing all the content from your slides, but change requires change, and change is hard. And if you implement a new process, then you think the work is done, but the work starts after you go live. The majority of the work comes after you go live. And sometimes the solution is super easy. So what we did is, instead of using all kinds of fancy technology and have the documentation in a link, and what we did is we created a simple step-by-step action. We printed it out, we laminated it, and we put it on the desks of all the inside sales reps. And it was that, bless you, and that really made a big change in the adoption of the process. So sometimes don't think difficult, think easy, and think old school paper. I think a last thing that I wanted to mention is a lot of people. There are some blurry things going on because I can't share all the actual numbers, but a lot of people think about numbers and success metrics as in, okay, we generated 10,000 new names this year. Out of those 10,000, 5,000 got qualified, 2,000 got an opportunity, and 500 signed a deal. And then the next year, we generated 12,000 records. But what about the 9,500 other that didn't make it to a deal? Why should we ignore those? You should think about velocity reporting. Your MQLs from this year could come from new names generated last year. You need to think about these as buckets of water. So many inquiries that moves to the next bucket in every period of time. And you want to think about these buckets in a way that they give you insight that if in a certain period you didn't convert many marketing qualified leads into sales accepted leads, that you will know if your stock of MQLs is lowering, that you will know that within a few months' time you will run out of deals. Right? And you need to fix that. You need to be in control of that. And this project was very nice. We were able to check upon broken SLAs, people that weren't calling prospects within 3 days and all of that. And that also made a significant change for what we did at Quintic. Yeah, and that's pretty much where I ended up in late 2015. When I was doing a lot of presentations from Vegas to Berlin, and people were asking, yeah, that's all very nice for Quintic, but what about us? And then my wife and I discussed, and I said, well, I'm going to found a company and make this my business. But for Quintic, the next steps, but also I think for the market at that time, the next steps was really about the Internet of Things, about AI. And if you look at who of you is a social media marketeer or a email marketeer or does the website, or somehow marketing is always seems to be organized in channel. But with the Internet of Things, we get drones, we get thermostats, we get smart cars, smart fridges. I can't imagine there being a thermostat marketeer. It would be just weird. So what I think is going to happen, we're going to have strategic marketeers think about their value propositions, and we're going to have a technical crew that supports them, and they're going to work together in agile teams. So you're going to have a technologist, a strategist, and they're all going to be in an agile team working on a certain value proposition and a go-to-market proposition. And I think, except for you two, everyone was in marketing, and I think what's happening is that marketing is the only place in the company that is able to truly understand the customer and be relevant. And in a customer-centric age, and that's where we are right now, that means that you are the voice of the customer. You want to make sure that the customer is heard and treated in a professional manner within the company. And that's the power you have. You will be the main person in the organization for the future to make a mark on the growth of the company. And that's pretty much what I want to share to you today. And I think we have a break right now. And Matt?
Big hand to Didrik.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time before break.
Yeah.
Gosh, you have a lot of questions. Or? I have a... You think about your questions, I have a question or two.
Okay, good.
So, let me see what questions. And a lot of companies I meet, they have a lot of data all over the place, different channels and Facebook analytics, etc. What is your suggestions to be able to? What do you need to do before you start?
Well, that's a good question. What I think is that people get lost in the amount of data that they have, but I think they also should consider what data do I need? You know, people try to capture everything they can, but also with GDPR, you don't need to know the 7 favorite ice cream flavors someone wants, right? So be very cautious about what kind of data you want to store. And then I think a second thing is, and nobody's putting, well, there's a lot of companies that don't put a budget against data, but first start with a data hygiene dashboard. So take your 10, 15, 20 key fields that you use for personalization, for targeting, country, salutation, role, these type of fields, and look at, okay, so I have 100,000 records. For 90,000, I have a value. So that's a 90% completion score. And then the second column will be, okay, but which of these country fields, values, meet the pick list criteria, right? Okay. And you'd be surprised where it says, you know, the Netherlands, Holland, Nederland, and all the different values. And by doing that, you can actually see your current state of data hygiene. And especially with AI and coming, you know, garbage in is garbage out. So first start with monitoring your data health. And if you do so, anything that you could then do to make it better, you could actually immediately see your result on that dashboard. Okay, good. Organization-wise then, I mean, you said in your bio that you were by yourself. I think that's pretty common, right? Yeah. And then you grow it to 5 people, right? But 6 or 6. Actually, yeah. So what is the roles or what is the different profiles you need? So for me is I'm looking for a niche agency, so totally focused on automation. And I think people should have the idea of how, like a Swiss clock works, right? So action, reaction, we all work with workflows. And I think a lot of people understand if you change this gear, the other one is changing. Most people can comprehend that, but there's an entire clockwork. If you manage a platform, you need to know if this dial changes, what the entire impact is on the platform. You need to have a discipline where if you upload a list, you first upload 10 records, check the activity log to see if it didn't trigger any weird things, and then upload the rest of the records. You need to have that discipline of understanding action, reaction, and eye for detail. I think those are it's very important. If I just ignore consulting or business, I think that's a powerful trait that someone should have. Okay. Oh, there's a question. The role of, just repeat the question, yeah, the role of change or the roles of marketing and sales and the relations between them in terms of MA and... Yeah, I think if you don't do it yet, what I would do in your teams is, let's say, a bi-weekly marketing and sales meeting. Could be like a 30-minute or 1-hour meeting, just make it concise. And marketing talks about, okay, these are the new names generated, the current state of where they are being followed up or not, if you have an event planned, which requires sales. Sales is going to talk about the deals that were closed, and you're really going to think about the commercial business together. The same goes for, let's say, a quarterly business review, where in a quarter leadership, marketing, sales get together. And I think one of the most powerful things is that you do you take 2-3 key deals that you won. Well, I'm talking B2B now because that wouldn't work for a pair of sneakers in a shopping basket. But take that key deal and look at all the touch points marketing and sales had. He attended this event, we had this call, we had this meeting. And it's not a quantitative research, but by doing that over and over again, together you start seeing patterns. And that really makes you come together and work on a common goal. Yeah. Why do you think we do not focus on the real KPIs and we would focus on the click-through rate and open rate, etc.? Why do we don't focus on the real insights that actions are being mentioned earlier? So the question is, why do we not really focus on the right or the important KPIs, more maybe on the easy KPIs, or if that is the case? No. So what I think is that a lot of because a lot of this of a marketing automation and marketing comes from the marketing, with marketeers. And unfortunately, there are still a lot of companies that, you start in marketing after school, and then you might go to inside sales. And if you're inside sales, you can grow towards sales. And it really depends on the type of company and the growth path that you have. But even in education, we're always talking about click-through rates and open rates of emails. And I think at a certain point, if you want to think about value creation for your company and agile in projects, you need to really think about, okay, so have this meeting at the end of the year thinking about, okay, so in 2020 we want to achieve X, we want to grow in, or we have a problem with our cost of acquisition, or there's not enough leads, and you pick that KPI that you want to focus on, and then every initiative you're going or even campaign, you're going to say, okay, but how does it contribute to that KPI? And report on that. And if you're not making that mark, and you want to think about why am I not making that mark, that's when you dive into your platform, because maybe the campaign didn't generate enough new names, and then why is that? So you only dive into, okay, maybe it's the open rate or the click-through rate. Those are health indicators where you really dive in and figure out what's wrong or how can I improve this campaign, but those are not metrics that contribute to achieving goals in the business. And you need to make that mind shift.
Good, thank you. Big hand.
Yeah.
Didrik Martens.
Thank you.
Thank you. Så hörni,